What's up, everybody? Hello and welcome to the Elbows Up podcast, the Bottles and Throttles podcast, talking everything sprint car racing, episode 8, and for the first time, ready for the Elbows Up Sprint Car Championship, the old school, not old school, but old school national championship, dirt and pavement sprint cars on iRacing. We're doing it tonight. Of course, it's always that meld. It's always that combination of the audio and the video and the love
Your
of
voice is
online racing.
You can tell AJ got a girlfriend because he's talking like a soothed man now.
I'm excited, man. I'm excited about what we're doing here tonight. This is the fun part for me. It's all coming together, Billy. My co-host, Mr. Billy Rowley, the Tuna Can 79 himself. How's it going?
Fantastic. Happy to be here. We've been gone a couple weeks.
We have, and that's okay because,
If there's one thing we are, it's inconsistent.
We are consistently inconsistent.
Well, at least then we're consistent about something. But we didn't set a schedule for this reason. Because we have lives. We like iRacing. I like to play Call of Duty.
Well, to be honest with you, I mean, like it's kind of hard to do a damn sprint car podcast every week, especially in goddamn November.
Well, yeah. It's tricky because of the fact that you've got nothing going on right now. Except there's a bunch of indoor racing coming up, but silly
PRI's
season.
gonna hit.
PRI is going to hit. There'll be stuff to talk about. The Dome, there's going to be a bunch of stuff to talk about. Then you got DeCoin coming up, which Connor Daly's running that deal now, so that's going to be cool. I think I'm going to ride over with him and basically just tell him to not be a pussy the entire time.
Hold on a second. Daly?
Connor Daly. He's in a midget. He's going to run DeCoin and potentially the Chili Bowl.
Okay.
So, I'm happy for him. Should be cool.
Well, he's having fun. I mean, obviously the Indy deal, he didn't get as much seat time as he thought he would. So
yeah, might as well go run a midget because what else do you got to do? It's perfect.
Well, yeah. I mean, you get. This is the thing. I was speaking to my significant other about this earlier. We're talking about the sprint car championship that we've put together here. This is the way that sprint car racing was throughout the 80s and 90s. Okay, this is dirt and pavement, that sort of thing. It's a multiple discipline racing league, and that's the way that the USAC National Championship Trail was back in the day. And
yeah, for all you youngins, did you even know that sprint cars ran on pavement back in the day?
Exactly, and they had specific dirt and pavement cars, and a single team ran both. It was one of those things. But okay, you look at guys like Jeff Gordon and Tony Stewart and Kenny Irwin and all of these guys that made the jump to larger racing series, and the reason they did so is because they cut their teeth learning multiple disciplines. They were adaptable. This was a thing where you could get out there and hustle a car on a dirt track, but then you could also go out on pavement and conserve tires to have that damn thing under you at the end of a 50 to 100 lap race at IRP.
Exactly.
And when we're talking about Connor Daly doing multiple disciplines, I still believe that when you do lots of different types of racing, lots of different cars, lots of different, tracks, that sort of thing, you can take something from everything that you do. That multiple discipline talent, that adaptability, that sort of training that you go through, mind and body and spirit, it's helpful. It's a big deal.
Absolutely.
That's what makes this so special. This is what's so cool about that, because we don't have that anymore. It's gone.
No, it's all you're either a dirt guy or you're a pavement guy. You're not both. And it'll be fun. I mean, I think we got like 40 guys entered, which I never thought that was going to happen. So if we get 20 tonight, I'll be happy. But
that's a big deal in online racing. It's a big deal.
Yeah. I'm pretty happy. You know, one of these days maybe Power Eye or USAC will get involved and say, hey, that's kind of cool. If you have somebody else run it, then we'll be involved. But USAC probably doesn't want anything to do with me. I was telling Rich Foreman earlier because we were talking about like just the USAC office in general because they had their meeting today, and from what I've understood, there's going to be nothing major, but there's some good stuff on the horizon, and that's pretty much all he said. But the we were talking about the USAC office. I said, what would they do if they've probably got like a shotgun at the door with a photo of me waiting, just been like, if this guy walks in, just open fire. But
fucking blacklisted.
yeah. But no, we were we were there's been a big, if you're on Twitter, there's been a huge thing about like race formats and how to make cars pass again and all this sort of stuff. And so we were talking earlier, and I said, you know what, that sounds like a good thing for me and AJ to potentially argue at. I have no idea his viewpoint on it, but I will give you mine real quick. I don't really care for the USAC format because I feel like if you run 4th in a heat race from 6th, okay, that's cool. But if you win the B main, you shouldn't be able to start 7th. That's terrible. That's awful. If you didn't make the show through the heat race, you shouldn't start up front of guys that did, regardless of what you qualified. The big complaint was that Danny Dietrich said that the Outlaw format sucked. Well, the Outlaw format, I think, is almost perfect, in my opinion, only on the basis that if you're fast, you deserve to be up front. And everybody says, well, if you're fast, then you should start in the back and race your way to the front. Well, folks, hate to tell you, that's not how wing sprint car racing works on a one-groove racetrack anymore. It's just not. Like, it's in no way, shape, or form is it. It all boils down to dirty air is something that should never be talked about in a sprint car, but it's unfortunately important. It is. And when and I've worked on enough wing sprint cars to know that if you don't pick off a few guys on the start, you're probably not going to pass anybody on a half mile because of the fact once it gets spread out enough, everybody's equal. Everybody is so fast anymore that it's not like it was in the 70s and the 80s where Steve Kinzer could start 8th in a heat race at Knoxville and be leading the thing off of 2. It's just not how it is anymore. So in order to make it to where if you're fast, you can start up front. And if you were okay in qualifying or you had a mistake, you can still run that thing up to the front if you have the speed. And so I personally like the World of Outlaw format because I would rather see mediocre heat races and a fantastic feature than great heat races and a mediocre feature. Personally,
yeah, I think that's what you got to prioritize. Let me take this off track for a second, because okay, well, you know what? Let's talk about the format. You talked about the USAC format. You talked about the WU format. I like the WU format for a lot of reasons. I only have one problem with the USAC format, which is what you pointed out. The semi-feature guys should not get their qualifying times back.
No, if they gave the semi, because I think, and I agree with that, because there's a lot of times where, let's say if you're fast time and you miss the heat race, you miss it in the heat race a little bit, you're penalized at most one spot. That shouldn't. Yeah. That's not a. To me, no. I want to see you race your ass off to go from 6th to 4th. It's not like they're asking you to go a full invert. You know, I don't know why that decision was made. That's not how it used to happen. It was not a thing that we used to do. No, it wasn't. I know. Even with the old format, people would say, "Oh, well, people will sandbag and they'll try to be 6th quick." It doesn't help to be fast time; it helps to be 6th fast. You know, which I understand that. That's one of those things. But it's still better than giving semi-feature guys their time back, and then, all of a sudden like when we went to Kokomo in July, the 13th quick qualifier sat on the fucking pole, and that's okay. And to me,
is it?
To me, that is perfectly fine, because the way that format is, it is the fastest 6 cars that transfer out of the heat race. Those are the fastest 6 in the feature, invert 6. I'm cool with that. I'm totally cool with that. And that's one of those anomalies to where what we're talking about doesn't really matter, because when you think about it, if that many guys missed it, then they're going to start up front anyway if they get their time back. But at the same time, though, I'm totally fine with that. If that's how you're going to do it, personally, I like dash shows. I think dash it's better for the fans.
Why do people hate dashes? I don't understand that.
It's not so much, I don't think fans hate it. I think fans love it. Teams don't like it. Because if you think about it this way, if you're a World of Outlaw team, if you're an Outlaw team and you're fast, if you're Donnie Schatz, Darren Pittman, whoever, it doesn't matter. If you're fast, you're putting extra laps on your equipment, you're putting extra laps on engines, and you're putting extra laps on tires. All that does is drive cost up. The Outlaws used to do a 2-dash format where if you made the top 4 in the A, you were in a dash, and you ran like 8 extra laps a night. So when you equate that out, over the course of a season, that's a couple of engine rebuilds. So I get it on that aspect of it, but from a fan perspective, I like a dash. I would love to see USAC go to, if they've got 4 heat races, keep the format the exact same. Keep it the exact same. But the fastest 2 guys in that heat race that transfer go to the dash, and you run them things, and you spin an invert wheel, you pull a kid out of the stands, have them roll a dice, draw a card, flip a Coke bottle, do whatever you want. I don't care. Invert the dash that way, run them. However you finish is how you start the main.
Let me, I didn't get a chance to do research. Do we still totally invert heat races in USAC and World of Outlaws?
No, the Outlaws have 0 invert.
Zero invert on heat races.
You set quick time in the Outlaws, you start on the pole of heat 1.
Okay.
And if you run top 2, you're in the dash.
USAC is a complete heat invert.
USAC is 6.
Okay.
So you're at 6 cars.
For the heat.
For the heat, and it's a 6 car for the A main.
Which normally you don't have more than 6 in a damn heat anyway, right?
Well,
I mean,
6,
they do
8.
4 heats.
Yeah, 6, 8, 10. At most bigger shows you might have 8 to 10, but a lot of them you run 8 to 10.
Well, the way we're talking a lot about how it was in the 90s and 2000s, because this is the way that this league is set up. It's because back then, when we were going to sprint car races like crazy, you still are, I'm not.
Yeah, because you're a loser.
Well, that's debatable. Back then, they completely inverted the heat races.
Yeah,
100% invert.
Yeah, we thought. I used to think that USAC had a rule that Jack Hewitt had to start in the back of everything.
Well, that's the way it looked.
So I get it.
that bit people too. People are going to bitch about anything that you do. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But however, where I was going to go before we started talking format. The problem's not format. You want to talk about how do we get people to pass? How do we do this? Cut costs, that sort of thing. Well, you don't run so much tire. The goddamn tires are so big. They're huge. They're expensive. And guess what? Nobody's ever going to do a fucking thing about it because Hoosier runs the whole goddamn deal. It's a Ponzi scheme.
Well, I totally will agree with. The weird thing is today on Twitter, we were, and actually, I will commend the short track community on Twitter because y'all are actually respectful. You don't call any, it's weird. It's totally wild. But y'all are respectful, and we were all having a conversation, and I said something to the effect to Danny Dietrich and a few other guys, Scotty Martin, and I said, I don't see the problem as necessarily a format issue. I think it's a race car issue. You've got so much dirty air with 8 cars on the racetrack that you get spread out and you can't pass anybody. Well, they said something. They think it's more of a tire issue than anything. They said the narrow tire made it worse. And I asked for clarification of why, and I never really heard. But I'm interested, and if anybody out there that's listening to this knows, tweet me, because I'm really truthfully interested. Because I would think that if the more bite you add, because the more tire patch you have, the more bite you've got, I figured that the more of that you had, the more locked down everything's going to be. But they're saying no.
Well, there's going to have to be adjustments to the cars if you're going to make the smaller tires work. These cars are built to work with the big tires.
Well, but also like the sprints on dirt up in Michigan, they're an open tire, or they're an open motor rule. So you can run a 410, anything, as long as it's not a big block, you can run it. But you have to run a late model left rear, literally a right rear off of a late model on the left rear, and a 100-inch right rear, so it's smaller than what a normal sprint car tire is, and they did that to equalize the engines. If you got a 410.5 mile, you're still going to smoke the field. It's just how it is. Motors on a half mile are still going to win you a race 9 times out of 10.
Could you imagine these 900 horsepower engines with little bitty tires?
Oh God! They have those. They have those. They're called modifieds.
Yeah,
and
well, that's true.
I mean, big blocks are the same way. They got a ton of power, and they even have more weight on them. And it's the same thing. So I mean, I don't know what the answer is to the whole issue, but personally, I don't see a problem.
That's kind of funny that you mentioned.
I've
got friends. A team that I'm pretty close to. They have 800, almost over 800 horsepower in their modified engines, and they actually run restrictors. They run restrictors everywhere they fucking go.
So it's like, cool, I just paid all this money to have a big ass motor, and then I'm going to put restrictors in it because that makes sense.
It does, but actually, I mean, they got really good deals.
Well, somebody else had mentioned this on somebody else had mentioned this on Twitter too, and Seabass just said it in chat. You know, if you're ever want to watch iRacing, twitch.tv/thetunacan79. Shameless plug. Twitch Prime subs. He said bring back dish wings and a lot of the dirty air goes away. I personally agree with that. I do. I think the flat wings was a way to unhook the race car, but I think what it did was created another problem. The dish wings without a wicker, or a 1-inch wicker or a 1/2-inch wicker max, would be way better. The problem is you've now implemented where any 410 in the country uses a flat top wing, so now there's all these flat top wings out there. So it's like you that's a rule that you say right now, okay, next year you can use a dish wing now, next year dish wings are going to be mandatory or allowed, and let the guys race through the shit they got now or something. But I think dished wings might be a better answer. Yeah, it locks the corner down a little bit, but the air is cleaner behind it. So when the air is cleaner behind it, you can actually tuck up behind somebody and race. That's the thing. Like Jacob said it at Eldora. He's like, dude, the car is fine. There's nothing wrong with the car. It's fine. The problem is I can't go anywhere because if you get up behind somebody, the damn thing just pushes. So it's like you have to go to a different line, and if you're ever all around the fence, nobody can pass anybody.
Yeah, there's one line that's going to maximize your potential unless you've got a car that's set up really good for a position where nobody else is, but people are in that position because that's the optimal line at that particular moment on that particular track. That's where the moisture is.
And that all goes back to what we were talking about with race format. A lot of guys don't want to. A lot of your quote unquote lesser teams, and I'm not knocking anybody, but a lot of your lesser teams might be shying away from going to an outlaw race due to the fact solely that, well, I know I don't have a motor to go set fast time, so now what? I got to go run 8th in the heat race and start in the back all night? I'll just save my money and stay home.
Right.
And that I think is a valid concern, but at the same time though, should we be dumbing down? And I don't mean it like derogatorily, don't take it that way, but should we be dumbing down the most premier series in the country? And I'm talking USAC, I'm talking USAC, Woo, All-Stars. When I go to an All-Star, a Woo, or a USAC race, I want to see the best of the absolute best. If I want to go watch weekly racing, I will go watch weekly racing, but I want those weekly guys still there because they make the show. They're the locals, you know, when the Outlaws go to Pennsylvania and California, people watch the Outlaws get beat. People go to Kokomo to watch the local heroes that run Kokomo every week beat USAC. Like, could you imagine a bigger win in the world of sprint car racing, or non-wing sprint car racing at least, if Scotty Hampton or Cole Ketchum or somebody like that went to Kokomo and won a USAC race and beat KT and all those, people would go nuts.
Yeah.
And that's what racing's all about. And I think that's why the discussion is good of what can we do to make it better. And
Well, you know, talking about costs, sprint cars, the cars themselves, not so bad really. To buy a fucking roller chassis is not crazy expensive. Now, it's really easy to fucking wreck them. One good flip and you might ruin the entire chassis, and you're probably going to need a new front end, and you might do damage to the rear end. But as you know, a chassis and suspension parts and things like that, not super expensive.
No, the engine is what's expensive.
Yeah, that's the thing. The engine, and then you got tires that get crazy, and that's where that stuff comes in. That's why I talk about, the tires are so huge now, which makes them more expensive.
Those tires,
motors, that sort of thing.
Those tires from Hoosier could be, and I'm not knocking Hoosier. It's capitalism. I'm all about capitalism. I love capitalism. It's the greatest thing in the world.
They cornered the market.
But they've
exactly what they wanted.
But they have cornered the market, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I don't really think that they're gouging anybody. I really, truthfully, don't. But it is expensive to go, but you still have to, even with the tire rule, you still have to go to the racetrack with 2 to 3 right rears mounted. If you go to like Eldora, you got to have a 94, 96, a 98 ready, and then usually you've got a couple more in the trailer just in case you blow one or you pop one. So
that's the thing.
There's always going to be expense no matter what you do, and sprint car racing still to this day is pretty damn affordable. People will argue with me on that all day long, but to go out and spend 30 grand on a competitive micro, or 25 to 30 grand on a good sprint car that can still go win you races in Indiana, I'm sorry, it just makes more sense to do a sprint car. Same thing with midget.
Like we said, other than motor and tires, sprint car racing is fairly affordable. Problem is, motor and tires are the two most expensive part,
and arguably they're the most.
There's any race car, the engine and the tires are the most important to
absolutely.
Car, period.
Absolutely.
And the thing about, like I said, Hoosier's not gouging anybody. They're a business. They do exactly what they do. What frustrates me is that, these companies get so involved in the sport themselves that all of a sudden the rule makers can't make rules to do things that help the sport themselves. Okay, Hoosier's not, if you say, okay, we want smaller tires, Hoosier's going to be like, we don't really like that. The reason the tires got bigger is because we can charge more because it's more rubber. It's more expensive to make. And then you talk about, okay, well, maybe if we made the tires harder, they'll last longer, and then that's cheaper for the teams. And then Hoosier says, well, if you make the tires harder and they last longer, then we don't sell as many. So
but the crazy thing is they've tried that. They've gone to harder compounds, and guess what? They seal over after you put a heat cycle in them, so the tires are still junk, and you got to get new ones anyway.
Exactly.
So it doesn't.
I don't think that's not the answer.
No, it's not. I think the problem is there really is no good definitive answer. That I think is the problem. But I think as a group, everybody's actually been pretty good about what they need to do and what they need to do, how they need to do it in order to make the racing better. But I think that truthfully, the World of Outlaw format is at first I hated it. I thought it was the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life. I thought it was dumb. I hated everything about it. But then I started to watch it and realized that, yeah, it is pretty awesome.
Best deal going.
Somebody brought up today, they said, well, yeah, look at Brett Marks. Brett Marks basically started like 16th every night and would run up to 5th or 6th or 7th. Great. He was a hard charger every single night. Nobody passed more cars in the World of Outlaws than he did. But when he qualified right and started up front, the boy won races.
Yeah.
Well, there's two
Well,
trains
that's
of
what you.
thought. And there's two trains of thought. The first train is, or the first thought is, well, the format sucks because he has to start in the back all the time. Well, okay, then you got to get better qualifying, and that's not a knock on him. I think he's a great driver. I think he's one of the most underrated drivers in World of Outlaws right now, in a 410 sprint car period. But when you've got to just step your program up, that's all it boils down to, and
Well,
that's
that's the thing.
where
I
the
mean,
best of the best are there. That's how it should be.
no race car driver is going to bitch about the format if you can qualify up front and start up front. Okay,
Absolutely.
like if you qualify 15th, you don't you don't go out there like, God, I hate this fucking format. I never start up front. Okay, son, all you gotta do is set the quickest qualifying time. You're gonna start on the pole. You know, that's the thing. That's, you know, as a competitor, when you're talking about sport, that's the way you want it laid out.
Right.
But where do you find that fine line between sport and entertainment? Because the fans are like, well, yeah, we like the guy, you know, it's a good sport. Yeah, the fastest guy starts up front. He should. He's earned that. But we want to see him pass a little bit, so, you know, invert him. Which the World of Outlaws does invert the dash, so you get a little bit of both worlds.
Yeah, I
there,
mean,
and that's why they have the best balance going.
And I think too, because just because you set fast time and dominate your heat and win it doesn't mean you're going to start up front in the dash. Yeah,
No.
you could go out and draw a one pill and start on the pole of the dash, or you could draw an 8, and you could start 8th in the dash and be buried. So to me, it is the best of both worlds.
I'm gonna be honest with you. The race that gets me the most fired up when I go to an outlaw show is the dash. That's when I'm like, haha, you know, I'm rubbing my hands together. I'm like, we're gonna see the fastest 4 or 6 or 8 of these boys go at it, and see who's got it in a short amount of time. You know, obviously I'm there to watch the A main, but I get excited for the dash.
Oh, absolutely. I think a lot of people do too, or I think a lot of other people do too. To me, it's the format for me. I don't, you know, heat races are whatever. It's a preliminary event. To me, it matters, but I really, you know, I don't want to go miss it, but at the same time, I really don't care. You know,
Right.
But the feature, if you put 8 guys that deserve to be up front, and I'm not saying that the guys that aren't up front don't deserve to be there, but if there's 8 guys that deserve, truthfully, to be up front in the feature, I'm gonna ballpark Scotty real quick. I swung and missed, but
Scotty, who's running the Jarrett Andretti paint.
well,
tonight.
he said he was running the Jared Andretti scheme in case he crashed. Which is terrible, and he said it jokingly, but I love Scotty.
Jarrett Andretti.
So
I
honestly,
love
I do
Jarrett.
too. I do too. But
And actually, that was funny because we were talking about who started on the pole in Kokomo. It was actually
Jared Andretti.
And
but,
I think he finished dead fucking last. I don't know what was wrong with that car, which there was. There was something legitimately.
Yeah, it wasn't good. It wasn't.
I love Jarrett. I love him.
Good family, but I mean,
super nice kid. Super
but
nice kid.
I think the outlaw format is good on the basis that the heat races are important. Their heat races are super important. The heat races are more important so much than the dash is, because if you're starting, let's say, 3rd in your heat race and you run that thing to 2nd, you've legitimately potentially gained yourself 5 rows. That's a lot. That is a lot.
Which is where people are like, oh man, we should do passing. And I hate fucking passing points. I hate them.
I like passing points if you do them right. How Australia does passing points with, like, the World Series. Okay, the World Series of sprint cars. I don't know if their format's the exact same now, but this is how it used to be. You went out and you qualified. You got points for qualifying. That set you in a heat race. So when that set you in your heat race, you ran 2 sets of heats. 2 sets of heats, total invert. So if you set fast time, you're on the donkey. And then the faster you get up to the front, the better. You run 2 heat races, top 16 in points go to the A, the rest go to the B mains, and the dash is not a dash. I don't remember what they called it. I think it was just called the top 8 showdown or the top 8 shootout, but it was badass. They would take the back 3. It was 6, 7, and 8 that were 6, 7, and 8 that were locked in. They would go out and run 5 laps. Fastest guy got to stay on the racetrack. They'd bump another 2 off. And then that's how they just set it. So you could theoretically, it's badass. It's a great fan environment.
Super cool. But here we were talking about him bitching about a dash. We're like, running.
Yeah,
extra
but
heat,
the difference is the Australians, they run 35 races a year. They're not. You can run an entire Australian season on 2 engines. You can. The Outlaws would throw a conniption fit about that.
That's my problem with passing points. Is you if you qualify on the pole, you set quick time and you're sitting on the pole in your heat, you win your heat, and then all of a sudden you don't have as many points as somebody else. Like, fuck me for doing as good as I possibly could, sorry for fucking sitting on the pole and then winning the race. My bad.
Well, but but the Tulsa Shootout, for example, you've got like 300 cars, or even the Chili Bowl, same format. You got 300 cars in a class. Let's say you draw for your heat race. And then the top 120 after your heat races go to qualifiers. You start them things just like that. I think they invert 6 in the qualifier, 6 or 8. And so you run your qualifier, top 16 are locked into the show. I love that format because it promotes you have to go to the front every single time you're on the racetrack. The only thing that I don't like about it is from the fan perspective. So if you've got, let's say, somebody that's generally new to sprint car racing, they have no clue what's going on. They're like, I just watched that guy win the heat race. Why is he in the B main? And that's hard to explain to some people. And I get why it's hard to explain to some people. I really do. It is confusing. But at the same time, it's like, I like it from a racer standpoint because you have to go. I mean, my week in Tulsa that I drove out there, mainly I sucked. So my talent kept me from doing anything. Before anybody thinks that I'm making excuses, I suck. Get over it. My week got ruined the first corner of the first lap because I was starting 8th out of 10 cars and I crashed going into 1 because somebody parked it going into 1, and guess what? I ran 10th. My week's done. I'm in the C main now and I'd have to run 800 races to get to the main. And so, but I like that aspect of it because racing is a lot about luck too. Racing is about luck, speed, determination, and ability. And realistically in that order. Because you can have a really fast race car and suck, and you can also have a really slow race car and be pretty quick. So it just depends. Formats are something that's always going to evolve. It's always going to change. But I think that there's certain ones that do it better. There's certain thing. I think the USAC format, if they would take the B main winners getting their time back out of it, I'd love it even more. I'd love it because it's basic, It's quick, it's easy. Boom, you're done. But I don't see that happening. Well, I don't know. Owners meetings. It's hard telling.
Fuck them. Clubs.
Well, you guys all know how I feel about clubs. I hate them. Not just USAC. I don't hate USAC. I love USAC, but
that club shit goes way back.
Yeah, clubs. I'm not a fan of clubs. I got screwed over in a go-kart championship in like 1996 because of club politics when I was like 12. I hated it ever since. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really think we didn't solve any of the world's problems tonight. But I think we talked about some.
Fuck world hunger. Let's figure out racing formats.
Well, I mean, they don't even have sprint cars there. So, I mean, sprint cars are kind of life.
Let me say this off topic a little bit.
Oh, now we're going off topic.
This setup, you made it a hell of a lot better, Billy. We've been working on this setup this week, and I thought it was in a good spot. Maybe it was a little. Somebody called it loose, and we were putting our heads together and trying to figure out what's going on. But this setup is pretty decent on a wet track and a dry track, as well as if you watch it on the replay,
it looks like a non-wing car.
It looks legit. And actually, I just biked it on the cushion at one point too. So
great.
I think this is a pretty good setup.
Well, and thank you to Maxim Chassis for that deal, because I got pissed off last night because I was not happy, and I went on Maxim's website and got that deal, and you know what I did? I just took their setup, put it on here, and tweaked it a little bit, and made the thing better. So we ran a test race last night, and it's good. But we should probably get this cut short so we can actually go race and practice and have a good time.
It's about game time, babies, and if you're not knowing what we're talking about the Elbows Up Sprint Car Championship, non-wing 410 dirt and pavement sprint car action starting tonight at Volusia. We're going to do it live, 9 p.m. Eastern Time on Wednesday nights, and we are actually giving championships. I guess not giving them away, but we talk about the multiple disciplines. We have pavement racing, we have dirt racing, all in one championship. We will crown a dirt champion, we will crown a pavement champion, and the overall champion will be crowned as well. Sponsors are in talks. You never know if you might end up with some prizes. Like we said, we've got nearly 40 entries. Over 40 entries?
We're right roughly around 40, and I'm going to open it up for next week, so that way next week we run Raceway Park with the pavement car. So that'll be a good time.
Yeah. No, or is it linear?
No, it's linear next week. I screwed up. Raceway Park's later on. But either way, it'll be a fun time. So I mean, if you guys got
a quarter mile, right? Like they have it listed as 3/8. Linear's not a fucking 3/8.
It's a small 3/8. But it's quick, it's fun, it should be a good time, but it should be a good time. I know it's nerdy to talk about iRacing, and it gets such a bad reputation because I should be out working on my race car. Well, I don't have the race car, so bite me. No, we're going to have fun, and hope you guys come and watch some of this stuff. I'm going to try to post some of it on YouTube, so that way you guys can see what us idiots do and watch Scotty Hampton tear up race cars. And I mean, hell, Donnie Adams is running it. We got a few other guys that are running it. We might have some guest appearances, so it should be a pretty good time.
We've got real sprint car drivers racing. We've got officials in there. We've got owners. We've got iRacing professionals signed up for this league. Christopher Bell was hanging out with us the other night trying the setup out.
He said it was ass, by the way. Chris Bell hated it.
He was actually the one that said it was loose, which is fine.
Which honestly, at first I was like, all right. And then I started thinking about it, and then I was like, you know what? He's kind of right. So we did some tweaks.
What the fuck does he know anyway?
Yeah.
Is he not like we're gonna listen to Christopher Bell because I guess he's okay. I can run a non-wing sprint car. I can run a wing sprint car. I mean, I nearly won the NASCAR Xfinity Championship a couple of weeks ago. Like, yeah, we care about your opinion, Christopher Bell.
Yeah, he's only won 2 Chili Bowls in a row, 2 Turkey Nights in a row, World of Outlaw races.
Nobody.
Yeah.
He's nobody.
Yeah. I would love to be. I am a nobody, and I would love to be his level of nobody. That would be fantastic if I was correct. I would love. Really though, if you think about it, I would love to have like an 1/8 of the talent he has. Because if I had an 1/8 of the talent of him with my like, I don't know, 1/128th of talent. That's almost like I could be competitive at Kokomo Weekly.
Well, you gotta look at it this way. Joe Gibbs knows who he is. So that's when you know you've made it in racing. Joe Gibbs knows who you are.
Yeah, Joe Gibbs knows.
Maybe even in football, I don't know.
Hell, he's probably good. He's probably he's probably good at football too. He's good at everything. It sickens me. But I love Christopher Bell. He's such a good dude. Such a good dude. So we're gonna get ready to go with this deal, and I'm gonna end it so AJ doesn't keep talking. For once, it's not me.
La 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 la.
But thank you guys for listening to this deal. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, Tune FM. We're on everything, I think. Everything except Spotify, because they're jerks.
Yep, and you might see us weekly now since we're racing on Wednesday night.
Yeah, we'll probably run more. We'll probably have more shows, and especially with PRI coming up in the Dome, DeCoin. If you're going to be at DeCoin, hit me up. Hit me up at DeCoin. I'll be running around with Connor and making my rounds and all that stuff. So, would love to meet you guys. So, stop on by, and thanks for tuning in. It's been much fun as usual.
Always. If you're not gonna get involved with the league, which you can at elbowsupracing.net, then hit us up and hang out with us next week, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Twitch, twitch.tv/thetunacan79.
That's me.
Thanks for joining. Thanks for listening. Thanks for racing. Thanks for watching. Whatever you do, we appreciate you and love you, and we'll see you next time.
Peace.